Welcome, everybody, to the Matt Willson Weekly Kickoff Show, Wild Card Playoff Edition. I'm Mike Dykes. He's Gerald Smith. Gerald, Season 22 already in the books. It feels like just yesterday we just got the season started.
I think it was nearly yesterday. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, we had that whole playoff scenario show, or actually the thing that actually broke it down after the fact, which was on a Tuesday, which was, just a few days ago. And now we got teams that are in it. Teams may be looking out due to the tiebreaker situation where they may think that they should be in it when they're not, because the SFL has very interesting tiebreakers that I know.
Why you gotta bring that up?
Why that I know so much about for my team getting on the losing end of the tiebreakers, but you know,
it's a mystery. But it's already the end of the season. Back in January, we got the season started. Seems like it just flew right by this year. I don't know why it seems so much quicker, but
it's the show.
It's the show. It's the Matt Willson Weekly Kickoff Show.
That's
it just made it that much more enjoyable.
It is. Flies by when you're having fun.
It does. So
even though you abandoned me for 1 week, the longest week ever, by the way. No, it's actually 2 weeks because we missed a show because you abandoned me. I was in the fetal position crying for nearly 2 weeks.
It happens to the best of us.
To me, it happened all too recently.
1 week. Anyway,
it was actually 2, but that's
way
cool.
off track already. This is not going well. See, you just think we have extra time tonight because the schedule is so short. We've only got 4 games to go over this week.
That's right.
Usually we go over a whole weekend slate of games, and what's the wild card playoffs? We've only got 4 games to talk about, so we're going to break all of them down because, hey, that's all we got going on. Half the league's been eliminated now, and just have the playoffs left. Only 4 more weeks of football left here in this season until the championship, and then of course the minor league will be kicking off right around the same time as the championship, actually that same weekend, and we'll still have some more football in the off season. So, what other than our show, of course, what's one of your big moments, your favorite memories from this past season? Is there anything that jumps out at you?
There's I don't know if there's a whole lot of favorite memories of mine. Especially I watch a whole lot of my team.
Yeah.
Kind of play. We had a whole lot of downs. We didn't have a whole lot of ups this season, but it was really interesting to see how teams adapted from what last season was to what in season 21 was to this season, right? And how we had some rule change and how teams adapted that. You had some teams that were able to, power through it, and you had some teams that seemed like they struggled, right? And we, as one of our team, your team in general, actually had, a really down season last season, and you guys powered through with the, with the changes in some of the rules, and it actually worked real good. And you yourself actually took over some, offensive coordinator duties, which I do think helped out the team tremendously compared to last season, because you wasn't really in that role last season. But, look. No,
Ramos was being stingy. He kept all that coaching to himself.
Man, he's got a lot of success.
He does
doing it that way.
He does.
But yeah, so I can't say there's a one that ultimately sticks out to me, because right now I'm thinking about my own team and the struggles we had. Yeah. So, but definitely some high points for a lot of teams out there. But if I had to take it, this pertains to my team, the Monday night game where we took down Mexico City.
Dang it, I knew
that was good. It's on camera. It was a fun time.
I'm done. I'm leaving. That's where you want to go. I'm not even going to talk about it anymore. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
But it was such a fun time to sit here next to you and actually have a game, to have an in-game performance, because not a lot of people get to do that. What we get to do every week. So
I had fun.
It's really unique.
It was a fun game. I did enjoy when Ray Bentley got that opening touchdown, throwing confetti on you. But then the whole rest of the game, I had my full cup of confetti in my hand, and I'm like, I can't throw any more confetti. It was just,
it was fun.
It was fun.
All around fun.
It was fun. So, hey, let's start talking about whatever. I'm going to take that down and burn it. I got to put the league flag back up. Let's talk about this upcoming weekend. We've got a great slate of games tonight, and then even more games tomorrow night. So both your Saturday and Sunday evenings packed full of football. Wild card playoffs, it's now win or go home for everybody. We'll start with tonight's first matchup, Alamo City at Fort Worth. Cameron Irvine, Charles Doherty, our usual Monday night spectacular crew, Saturday night special, I guess we'll call it, to get the wild card started. No better way to get the playoffs going than a Cameron Irvine call, and Charles Doherty's been with them all season long this season, which has been great to have him back in the fold. And great way to get the action started. Coming up here in just about 25 minutes time. At 9 p.m. we'll get the second game underway. Tulsa at Vancouver. Cameron Duty and Rochelle Colston. The two of them have called a few games together this season, and love hearing them. They do a great job.
A couple of Southerners. I love it.
Yep.
I love it. Louisiana,
Yep.
Rochelle, and Cameron Duty's from the Appalachian Mountain area, kind of thing. North of where we are, south from the swamp. Not we, but where from where Cheryl and myself is from. We're down in the swamps of Louisiana, but
can't get much more south.
He's north of that, but a couple of Southerners. Might be my favorite broadcast crew.
They're fantastic. I thought you and I would be your favorite, but hey, whatever.
Can't pick myself.
Oh, right. That's right. We're not Tyler. I forgot. Kidding, Tyler. Kidding. We love you. Sunday, we've got more action starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Atlanta at Houston. We've got Mark Lopez and Anthony Ellison on that call. Looking forward to that one, another South Division rival of ours. And then at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Seattle at Baltimore. Andy Hamilton and Brandon Walters wrapping up this weekend's action. So we're going to break down each one of these games. There's some good ones throughout the wild card. There's going to be even, in my opinion, even better games waiting for us in the quarterfinals next week that I'm looking forward to. The action just ramps up throughout the playoffs all the way through the semifinals. And listen, the championship game is always great, right? It's the pinnacle of the season, but the semifinals, that's where it's at, man.
And that's where that's where some of the most epic battles have been, right? Because I remember
they want to get in,
right? It wasn't that long ago, right, when some teams were going like when the Denvers, right? I remember it was I think it was back in season 15, sitting there playing. We were a 2 seed in Louisiana. We got there. Denver was the number 1 seed, playing at home. Both teams playing at home, and then we had a Sioux Falls team go into Denver and beat them.
Right.
And then Baltimore, which kind of started their whole run, they came into Louisiana and they actually beat us to go there. A couple of teams that nobody were really they were talking about Denver and Louisiana the whole season. Those two teams came in and actually and it was a convincing win on both sides. They went in and they beat us, and they beat Denver, and it actually changed kind of, especially Baltimore. That was the start of their whole run. That was their first out of 5
so
in
it's your
in
fault,
recent memory. I'll take the blame.
Well, speaking of Baltimore, let's go ahead and start breaking down some games. We've got Seattle at Baltimore. As always, we do them in reverse order. We'll start with the farthest away game, Seattle at Baltimore, Sunday at 9 p.m. Talking about Baltimore, they did have a slow start to their season this season, somewhat uncharacteristic of what we've seen in the past few seasons for them. 1 of 3 in their first 4 weeks, but they did finish by winning 4 out of their last 5, so finished pretty strong. They have continued on their record-setting streak of now having 12 consecutive seasons with a winning record, which is just unfathomable. I mean, winning in this league, as you know very well, is not easy.
It's hard. And now you're a coach. You know that as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's holes in the wall in my office now that are about fish size and shape.
Welcome to the world.
Random things just thrown. Lights that are no longer functioning because they were shattered. It's when Cam says, I want it to hurt. Well, it does, Cam.
In more ways than one. Also hurts the pocketbook. You got a lot of repairs to make.
Yeah. Weekend projects in the off season. But 12 consecutive seasons now of posting a winning record at the end. It's crazy. And also having a playoff appearance in each of those seasons. They've never not made it.
Right.
They came close to not making it this time, but they've made it every single one of their 12 seasons. Seattle, on the other hand, they started off strong. They won 4 out of their first 5, unlike Baltimore that went 4 of the last 5. So Seattle started off pretty strong, but then they went on a 3-game losing streak in the middle of the season, but then ended up turning it around. They won 3 out of the last 4, finish off pretty strong too. It's their second season now with a winning record and a playoff appearance. Both of these teams ended up 7-5. Neither one of them won their division, but here they are in the playoffs all the same. Let's talk about these two teams. I know you got a lot to say about them. We'll start with Seattle.
Yeah, and you already mentioned how Seattle started out really hot out the gate, right? And I'm taking a little bit longer right out of that, because out of their last 7 games that Seattle has played, they have dropped 4 of those. So if you think of it that way, hey, they're 4-3 in the last 5 games. They won last week to Portland to get themselves into the playoffs. one of the most important things, I know it's a long way back in week 2, they lost to the same Baltimore team.
Right.
And it's where Ty Patak, their quarterback, was sacked 8 times and threw 3 interceptions. Now, one thing of note, right? Like, Seattle has been 2-4 versus playoff teams this season, and they have not beaten a team with a winning record all season long.
Right.
I'm not talking about when they actually played them, but season-ending records.
Yep.
It ended up amount they haven't beat a team with a winning record all season long. Any team they've beaten have been 6 or worse. So the offense have struggled in the second half of the season. The rushing attack is in the bottom half of all playoff teams. They're third worst out of all playoff teams.
Yeah.
Look, and versus playoff teams this season, Ty Patak has 8 touchdowns and 14 interceptions.
Yeah, whole bunch of picks.
Not the numbers that you want from a quarterback, especially as you go into the playoffs,
For sure.
right? But tight end Paulie Truth has been a bright spot for them all season. He's had, I think, a career-type season and leads the team with 65 receptions, 908 yards, and 5 touchdowns, which leads all pass catchers on the team. So they're going to need more of that from their offense so they can kind of just – compete with Baltimore.
And they're going to need their defense to continue what they've done in the second half of the season as well. They performed, honestly, better than the offense in the last half. They've been averaging only allowing about 10 points per game.
Yeah, and that's been over the last 4 games as well, right? And they are top 4 in rush yards allowed and have 29.5 sacks on the season, which is third best. And they have 4 pick sixes,
which is great,
from their defense on the season. And this is where I think they can come up big against that Baltimore offense, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, which is extremely good.
Yeah.
This is where they're going to have to come up real big to put themselves in a better chance to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, talking about that Baltimore offense, led by quarterback Jack Wigmore, they're top 8 in all categories. And Wigmore, he's 4th in passing yards, number 2 in touchdowns. Talk about that Baltimore offense.
And you couple his performance with the number 8 rushing attack, and then wide receiver Ivy Irvin, who has been his top target, top 3 in receiving yards and touchdowns. And you put all that together with the rushing attack and the way Wigmore's playing, and then throwing especially to Ivy Irvin, you have yourself an extremely solid offense, and they're able to score points. They're getting over 26 points a game, right? So, look, and we're talking about how they have played teams. They have beaten 3 playoff teams this season, all with winning records.
Yes.
Right? In week 2, we already know what they did, and that they beat Seattle in week 2. They ran all over Seattle with over 150 yards on the ground, threw for over 230 yards with 4 touchdowns total on offense. Dangerous offense, in my opinion, to face in the playoffs, especially for Seattle in this early opening round.
Dangerous offense to face all the time. And let's face it, too, Baltimore's at home. They almost, we talked about it last week in our 1-hour show.
Right.
It ain't an hour today. You don't have to bear with you. Listen, 17 more minutes. Hang in there. It's all you got to deal with this for. No, but we talked about it last week. They don't lose at home, and guess what? They didn't lose at home last week either. It's a tough place to play. Let's talk about that defense. I know you like to refer to them as high risk, high reward.
Yeah, because they give up buku yards, right? They give up buku yards and points. But can they take the ball away?
They sure
can do it. They are ranked 3rd in the SFL in takeaways, which has given them more life than other teams, have had, right? That other teams that, if they're not picking the ball off at the rate that they're doing it, they might be sitting at home right now, which a lot of other teams are, right? Especially with the way their defense has performed yards-wise, right? So they, too, have 4 touchdowns on defense off of interceptions, 3 of which come from the cornerback Enzo Bolt. So, look, the 5-time champs are looking to make another run. I think at the way that they're playing right now, I think they're primed to do it, but they're going to have to get past Seattle to do it.
They are. Well, we'll find out about that one on Sunday night at 9. Also on Sunday, we have Atlanta at Houston at 6:30 p.m. It's a pair of teams that each finished 2nd in their division. Atlanta, they finished at 6-6. They're one of 3 6-6 teams that we'll talk about. They were able to win one of them tiebreaker games. I swear, Cam just sits there and rolls dice and says, I guess Atlanta.
Look,
and then goes on his show, well, if you look at this and this and this and this. Kidding. Definitely not dice.
I don't know. I got hit with that.
It's a coin flip. Anyway, so they're one of 3 teams that we'll talk about that won that tiebreaker scenario. They were very strong through week 9 before they faltered a little bit, but they did finish with a crucial win in their final game that's helped them secure that playoff spot. You wouldn't have gotten in at 5-7. Houston, one of 3 teams in the South Division to make the playoffs. Only 2 teams that didn't. Oh, damn.
Right.
Oh, well. we tried, man. We tried.
I don't know, man. I don't know if we tried, but it wasn't a valiant effort, I would say. I think it's my team.
The Aztecs made a valiant effort. Listen, Houston, they've been solid all season long. They did have a 3-game losing streak. I kind of chalked that one up almost to a fluke. They were able to turn things around after that. They got 3 straight wins to finish up the season. They're a very tough team, and this is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges that Atlanta has faced all season. Let's talk about Atlanta's offense.
Yeah, and Atlanta was sitting at home in Week 14 with their season complete because their season they had beat a Charleston team in Week 13,
right,
and they had to bye week 14, so they were waiting to see how all the chips are going to fall, right? But here we are in Week 15, the beginning of the playoffs. They find themselves in the playoffs, right?
Sure do.
You know, they lost to Houston a few weeks ago. They again travel on the road to Houston, you know, with their season on line. It's a win or go home type situation, right? Atlanta, who has the number 6 rushing attack on the season, but in Week 12, they were shut down by Houston.
Right.
Houston only allowed them 15 yards on the ground. Quarterback Brian Dines threw 3 interceptions, was sacked 6 times.
Yeah.
They got complete just outmatched at every stage of it. But what they did,
shut a guy like BDG Hollywood down.
Right.
It's going to be a tough day for you.
Right, and what they did the very next week, knowing, hey, look, we have to win the game to keep our playoffs hope alive, they rebounded the next week by rushing for over 100 yards, 3 TDs, along with Bryant Dynasty throwing for over 300 yards himself and 2 touchdowns. They will need that type of performance of top-tier play,
or more,
right, from their quarterback and from their running back to get themselves in a situation. And I do think in the passing game especially, it kind of goes through Kay Marion in the passing game because she has been phenomenal for Atlanta when they are successful. So she is going to have to be in top performance to get them to the point they're going to do it. Look, and they are number 2 in third down offense as well. So, you know, that's something that might better help them out.
And we're going to talk about Houston's rushing attack here in a little bit. But, you know, since we're on Atlanta right now, we'll talk about that defense. Number 7 in total defense and number 7 in rushing defense, which is going to be a crucial thing for them this game.
And that's the thing. And despite them having them numbers, they allowed nearly 200 yards to Houston in Week 12.
Yeah, Josh
right?
Slapp.
And they will have to slow down the Houston rushing attack, right? You know, if they stand to have a chance. Grandpa Shine and Shaw the Alien Allen, right, will have to step up at the linebacker position to make this happen. If they can't slow down that rushing attack, they're going to struggle, and they could have a repeat performance like they did in Week 12.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into Houston and talk about the best running back in the SFL, arguably. Josh Slapp. There's no gimmicks. He's just a legit stud running back.
Yeah, and he is. And he and G.P. Wells have rushed for over a combined 1,600 yards.
Best duo in the league.
Yeah, best duo in the league. I know some people are going to throw some other names out there, but I ain't worried about them because I do think that they are doing it. Like I said, there's no gimmicks. There's no nothing. They just go out there to execute and execute well. Quarterback Dave Burr has been a great game manager. I know a lot of people take that as a negative. It's not negative or a knock on him. He have had a very solid season, and he is helped by 2 Hall of Fame players as pass catchers with wide receiver D.R. Sim and Papa Irvine himself.
What's the average age between those 2? Never mind. Carry on.
I don't know. 300.
It's up there. Wow.
But so cow. Papa Irvine, tight end Tiberius Bovine, who have been Dave Burr's top 2 targets all season long. And Mike St. Green is also somebody that has had a really productive season in yards per catch. Not necessarily the gaudy numbers, but him as well. He comes up with big, long catches. He averages over 20 yards per reception. So that is something
huge
that, you know, Atlanta is going to have to watch as well, along with the run game.
And the defense is no slouch either. Arguably the best defense in the league that no one's talking about. Number 2 in passing defense, number 4 in total defense, we talked about how good Atlanta's defense is. Houston's maybe even better.
Yeah, see, and that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people's on the Canton train and the Florida train and some other teams around the league, but they know how to rush the quarterback as well. 19.5 of their 30 sacks come from the front four.
Yeah.
And that's severe pressure. And then having 30 sacks on the season I think it's just an amazing season in general. But you got 19.5, or well over half those sacks come from the front four.
Yeah.
They know how to apply pressure. Linebacker Chris Britton III leads the team in tackles and tackles for loss, who, in my opinion, is a lock for an all-star appearance. And they're going to need him to step up, and he's going to be key to trying to shut down that run game of Atlanta.
Yes.
if they want to try to do it. So, and not to be outdone with what the front four is doing. The secondary of this Houston team is top 4 in interceptions with 25
Insane
on the
numbers.
season.
Insane
right?
numbers.
So Houston is peaking at the right moment right now as the playoffs begin, and Atlanta has a huge task ahead of them. And I think, can they do it? I think they can, but will they do it?
We'll find out tomorrow. Let's get into tonight's games. We have Tulsa at Vancouver coming up at 9 p.m. tonight. Tonight's 2 games each feature a division winner playing in a wild card round. First up, Vancouver is the winner of the Pacific Division. They were at 7-5 tiebreakers with Seattle. Vancouver got the edge there. 7-5, par for the course for Vancouver. They've either finished 7-5 or 8-4 in 9 out of the 10 seasons, I should say, that they posted a winning record. If they posted a winning record 9 out of 10 times, 7-5 or 8-4. So right where they usually are. And this is actually their 3rd season in a row of finishing with a 7-4 record. They played solid, consistent football most of the way. Just an overall, solid team.
Right.
Tulsa, they finished 2nd in their division at 6-6. Our second 6-6 team here, narrowly making the playoffs. Obviously, they certainly know how to score points. Though number 5 in points scored, but Vancouver will probably be one of their toughest opponents yet. I think. Vancouver knows how to win playoff games. They nearly always win their first playoff game. Only last season was the first time they ever did not win that first playoff game. And Tulsa, they're going to be hoping for their first playoff win since season 18. So let's break that down. We'll start with Tulsa. They're back in the playoffs.
Yeah, and look, and they did a thing where it's like they backed up into the playoffs in terms of how they played. Them losing to a 3-8 Denver team last week at the
not
time,
how they wanted to finish.
But by some good fortune, they made the playoffs. So the Gabriel Manning show continues its tour, and its next stop is Vancouver.
Sure is.
So for them to continue the tour, they will have to involve running back Phoenix Jones. He has improved, over these, like the last half of the season. We talked about it midseason early on that they got to get him involved to kind of get Gabriel Manning kind of open, because we know how Denver shut him down last week. So look, and if they can do that, and it just opens up for Gabe Manning, who is number 1 in all wide receiving categories. You name the stat, he's number 1 at it. Look, and they can't become one-dimensional like last week. They need more of a balanced offensive attack if they stand a chance to win. Yeah,
and their defense, statistically speaking, not all that impressive if you look at the numbers. But once you look past the numbers is really when you start to see where they do shine.
Right, yeah, like I said, it's not going to just slap you in the face like, oh, man, I hate it real good. But if you just dive right into it, you'll see it. They have 3 players on the defense with 90-plus tackles, led by linebacker David Ware.
Boogeyman.
And the Boogeyman, Tony Roberto, who both top 3 in TFLs in the league. They also have a ball hawking secondary with a total of 22 interceptions on the season, with the league-leading 5 interceptions returned for touchdowns. It's been really important for them to be – look, and they are sneaky good. I think nobody's really – talking about them in that way, but they can pick a ball off and return it for a touchdown. And when you have kind of studly play at linebackers like that, you can shut down a rushing attack if you're able to kind of keep it in. I think more of their offense is a question for me against Vancouver this week.
Yeah, let's talk about Vancouver. The winners of 4 of their last 5, and like I said, in the intro, they're they've played solid football, but it's been hit and miss, much like why they end 7-5 or 8-4 pretty consistently. We've seen We've seen times they looked really good. We've seen times that they haven't played as good, but they have had one of the toughest schedules. Talk about Vancouver.
So look, and they have played 4 of the top 5 seeds in the playoffs right now. So they have had quite a tough schedule, and they lost all 4 games. That's not saying that they're a bad team. It just shows you how strong those teams are.
Yep.
And Vancouver is able to compete. But this team has grinded all season long, and I expect nothing less from an Andy Hamilton-led team. Why? Because we talked about it, a few weeks ago where, hey, look, he just knows how to get the production out of his players, and he's able to do it, right? Look, and they come away with all these wins, and they're able to get themselves into the playoffs with their number 10 rushing attack led by the now Hall of Famer Robert Redford and the super middle schooler Sudo Nakai to sustain the long drives. If they stand to win, that's what they need to do, to sustain long drives and keep the Tulsa passing attack off the field. Defensively, they need to get Bobo Caudill free and putting pressure on the quarterback to keep those balls from going down the field to Gabriel Manning. So if they can do that, I think they have a shot.
They do have a shot indeed. Listen, I tried my best last week to make them end at 6-6. It was not to be.
Didn't work.
Yet another one-score win over the Mexico City Aztecs. All 6 losses. Six, man.
We were 1.
Yeah, thanks.
That's why you get left out. You couldn't beat us in the
Anywho,
primetime game.
Anywho, let's talk about the game coming up in just a few minutes' time. Fort Worth hosting Alamo City, the Battle of the South. Division-winning Fort Worth at 8-4. They host Alamo City at 6-6. Listen, I'll never pretend to understand these tiebreakers, man. But Alamo City finished 4th in the South. Mexico City finished 3rd. I'm sure there's some magic formula. Maybe it's names out of a hat. I don't know. But nonetheless, Alamo City, they're here. They're playing Fort Worth tonight in Fort Worth. Let's talk about Fort Worth. One of the toughest schedules this season. You talk about Vancouver's, Fort Worth, one of the toughest schedules this season. And they've beat some of the best teams in the league. They're a powerhouse that has a good shot, in my opinion, of advancing all the way to the championship. Alamo City, they've had a much more rocky season. At one point, they had a 4-game losing streak going. They did finish with a win over Los Angeles, but other than when they beat Fort Worth, ironically, all the way back in Week 1, they did beat Fort Worth. They haven't beat a team with a winning record other than that one Fort Worth win in Week 1. And Week 1's always questionable because you really don't know what anyone's going to. Everyone's just kind of throwing a playbook up in the air and saying, I guess, see what happens.
Close your eyes.
But they haven't even beat a team that finished 500. So the whole rest of the way. Not disparaging Alamo City, but this is going to be a huge challenge for them coming up next. So let's talk about Alamo City and their offense.
Right, and a question I have is, where has Brad Jones gone?
Yeah.
The 2,000-yard rusher from just a season ago has less than half that amount this season with only 645 yards on the ground. But what they do have is a quarterback with the best completion percentage in Ace Finnick, who throws with purpose and does not miss his targets all that often. When you have wide receivers like Yayo Montana and Vin Cali, they have been clutch in key moments, and it's resulted in the number 3 passing attack for this Alamo City team. If they can get Brad Jones going, even though it's in the playoffs, you can't just dismiss him as if it's not going to happen. We've seen teams in all across the league just kind of change it up a little bit, and all of a sudden, a person you didn't expect to be the hero ends up just having this huge run. It's been a huge success for some teams in the playoffs. Yeah. So if they can get him going in these playoffs, they could find themselves in the quarterfinals from an offensive perspective.
Yeah, they absolutely could. It's kind of Tulsa-esque, right? Like, they've got the great passing attack, but they got to get that running attack going. Same sort of issue. Their defense, they've been solid all season long, number 5 scoring defense, but they really are next level when it comes to their pass rush.
Yeah, and they lead the league with 39 sacks.
Nuts,
39, and we just talked about a really good defense that has 30. They have 9 more sacks.
Yeah.
And 28 and a half of those are from the front four. 28 and a half sacks. That's ungodly. It's just crazy.
Dan Tritz would kill for those numbers.
Dude, and they've been dominating the line of scrimmage on passing downs. And linebacker Jay Mart has been huge in stopping the run, along with his pass coverage with his 5 interceptions.
Yeah.
He's been a field general for this team, and they will need this type of next level play to beat Fort Worth this week.
Yeah, Fort Worth is a great team. They're going to have a challenge against them. Fort Worth won 7 of their last 9, and much to my dismay, second season in a row that they've won the South. Oh, Marcus Dunhill in that rushing game that he had against us, I will never forget that game. Talk about Fort Worth.
Right, and the offense has proven to be better than last season, where they went 12-0 during the regular season. A lot of people probably don't even remember that,
right?
Because they didn't win a championship, but they were undefeated during the regular season. And that offense is led by quarterback Marcus Dunhill, who is number 3 in touchdowns this season and has quite the run game.
Yeah.
When he feels like stretching those
No
legs.
kidding.
So, is he proved against the Mexico City? Dunhill throwing to the best wide receiver duo in the SFL, and TD leader Stephen Hacker and E.J. Minchin, who have combined for over 120 receptions and over 2,000 yards receiving. So, look, and they also have some sizzle in the run game with J.Z. Bacon, right? So, complete offense, no real weakness from my standpoint that I can see. So, any team that's going to face them is going to have trouble stopping that offense from having a run game like they do in that passing attack. Not to mention the wonderful legs of Mr. Marcus Dunhill that
Will you stop?
He can just pull them up and run.
Yeah, he sure can. Anyway, it's enough on the offense. You mentioned you really don't see a weakness. If there is any potential weakness with this team, maybe it's the defensive side of the ball. Compare it to last season, for example.
Yeah. So and this isn't quite the dominant type defense I would expect from a team with a coach like Luis Gonzalez, right? So he's been phenomenal over the course of all his season, even dating back to whenever he was doing some stuff out in Queen City, right before they teamed up and created Fort Worth, down in Texas. So it's not what we're used to seeing defensively from them,
right?
They are far from a bad squad, right? They still have the 3rd best rushing attack, but they give up over 20 points a game, which is not good. The Gons up front on the defensive line, they have been really good, and that combo has been, difficult for some offensive lines to handle. But J.L. Browning, in my opinion, still has continued his campaign for a possible Defensive Player of the Year award.
Right. And
he'll have to keep that type of play up along with his teammates to make sure that the defense comes together and actually is able to push them forward through the playoffs.
Yeah, it's sure to be a fantastic game, and it's coming up in just a couple minutes' time. In fact, I think we've probably overstayed our welcome already.
I had a lot to say.
We do have a lot to say. Listen, you give us a platform, we take advantage of them. Probably never be invited back again. Anyway, let's talk about our picks real quick. We'll wrap this up. So, stop with your happy dance. Listen,
I won more games last week than you.
You're gaining ground. You're not winning.
Plenty games to go.
24-15. You're 21-18. So, ergo, I'm still winning. Anyway, last week you picked Carolina, Vancouver, Baltimore, Minnesota, and Louisiana. We went and picked 5 games. I picked Florida, Mexico City, go Aztecs, Fort Worth, Minnesota, and Louisiana. We were both wrong on your team, by the way.
Of course.
So the winners were, of course, Florida, Vancouver, Baltimore, Minnesota, and Houston. So you were able to gain, I think, 1 spot. So.
One ahead. But hey, look, I'm gaining. That's all that matters.
You're gaining.
Plenty of time.
It might be a little bit more difficult here in the wild card round. I think there's only 1 game we're going to disagree on. But let's start this off with Seattle at Baltimore. Who do you got?
I got Baltimore because I just don't think Seattle has the momentum like Baltimore has. Baltimore knows what to do toward the end of the season, especially in the postseason. I don't think they lose in the opening round of the playoffs at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. Baltimore, I'll just leave it at this. They don't lose at home. So Baltimore gets the win. Atlanta at Houston, who do you got?
I think the complete package of offense and what they have in that run game is going to be too much for Atlanta.
I would agree with that one as well. I also think that it's Houston. Atlanta's had they've had a solid season, but I think Houston's had a great season. I think that's going to be the difference. Tulsa at Vancouver.
I am going to take Tulsa. Reason being because I don't think the pass rush is going to be able to get to the opposing QB for Tulsa, and Gabriel Manning is going to have. He had a really off game last week. He dropped a bunch of passes. We called that game, dropped a ton.
Sure
He's
did.
not dropping those passes this week. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him to go for 203 touchdowns.
I'm going to go with Vancouver. So this is the one that we disagree on, I believe. It's hard for me to bet against Vancouver almost any time that they're playing, unless they're going up against a team where I say that they're just not going to be able to beat that team. And in this case, I think Tulsa's season has not shown enough to be able to say that they're going to be able to take down Vancouver. And like I said, Vancouver has been to the playoffs, I want to say 9 times now, and have only ever not won their first game once.
It was last season. It's recent.
It was like, yeah.
Recent memory.
Yeah.
Recent memory. Let's just go with that.
Wash that away, and we'll see. We'll see. Alamo City at Fort Worth.
I'm taking Fort Worth. They're just too strong. They have pretty much almost kind of, I'm going to say, they just dominated the South Division over the course of the season. They've been consistent for the most part, winning 7 of the last 9.
Yep.
And I think, look, they lost against a Baltimore team who was really hot, right, last week. So, look, and they're just going to get right back at home, and they're going to get right to it, and they're going to win this week.
Fort Worth, if they can't get the running game going with Jay-Z Bacon, they get the passing game going instead. If they can't get the passing game going either, Marcus Dunhill will just run all over the field like an obnoxious little man. It's unbelievable. They're going to win the game. They might get my vote to go all the way to the championship. We'll find out. But those are our picks for this week. We'll see if you're able to gain one more spot.
I'm going 4-0. You're going 3-1.
We'll see. We'll see. Listen, that's all we have time for. We've got a great game coming up next. Alamo City at Fort Worth. Cameron Irvine, Charles Doherty, right on the other side. Don't go anywhere. This has been the Matt Willson Weekly Kickoff Show. I'm Mike Daggs, Gerald Smith. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week for the quarterfinals. Sit tight. Couple of games coming up next right after this.